how do you manage work and personal life balance, which is very important and talk a lot about these days?
That is a very difficult one to answer. I'm not sure that I manage it very well. I spend a lot of hours every day working, and part of the Pakistani culture seems to be to never let anybody relax, because even when I go home, people will send emails at all hours of the night and day, and I sort of feel compelled to answer at least the important ones. So keeping a work-life balance is very, very important, but it's in some cases easier to do in theory than it is in practice.
Okay. Do you see any fundamental difference between the education overall landscape in the UK and in Pakistan so far from your experience?
That's very difficult for me to answer, and I think that, sorry, I keep saying it's difficult for me to answer, but it genuinely is. And I can't really generalize. I can say that LUMS is an outstanding institution. The education system here is based on the American model. There are clearly differences between the American model and the British model, but I think that LUMS is an excellent example of the American model.
Okay. How do you compare the higher education system of Pakistan and the UK in terms of, for example, curriculum design and teaching methods and classroom engagements, research infrastructure, faculty development? These are keywords, but let's talk about curriculum design.
Well, the curriculum design here in LUMS, I really like, and this was one of the things that attracted me to LUMS, is the idea of no borders. The idea of having a School of Science and Engineering where so many departments are housed in the same building, and there should be real interaction between scientists doing fundamental research and engineers also doing fundamental research, but in a different way. That was something very, very attractive. A corollary of that is that the LUMS curriculum is based on a common core, so that all the freshmen who start in their first year here, they all cover a basic syllabus of basic sciences, as well as applied sciences and engineering. And for me, that's something very positive and is quite different from the United Kingdom, because in Bristol, for example, if you come to study physics, yes, you will study maths in addition, maybe one other subject in the first year, but you really are doing physics from the word go.
Okay. And teaching methods and classroom engagements in this context?
I would say pretty similar, actually. My main complaint about aspects of the American system, and I think we take this to extremes here at LUMS, is the quantity of assessment. I understand that assessment is essential to motivate students to actually do some preparation, but I think that if you have too much assessment, you're not giving students enough time to actually think about the subject. And as I hope I got across earlier, for me, what kept me in physics is that it's fun. And if you take away the joy of doing a particular subject, what's the point of it?
Okay. And research infrastructure?
The research infrastructure here in LUMS is very, very good. We have a central research laboratory which has the main materials characterization equipment that I need to supplement my own equipment. Scanning electron microscope, atomic force microscope, X-ray diffraction. Sure. And for the chemists, nuclear magnetic resonance. Sure, a university like LUMS does not have as much equipment as a university like Bristol, but that's partly a function of it being very, very much smaller.
Okay. And faculty development, I mean, in comparison to the Bristol, for example?
Faculty development here is excellent. We have the LUMS Learning Institute, and the programs that they develop for improving the quality of teaching and education here are excellent. They are the equal of whatever is found at my old university, Bristol.
Okay. And next point is quality and preparedness of students, I mean, in comparison to the UK model.
That is, again, specific to LUMS. The quality of the students who come to LUMS is outstanding. And I would say on average, probably better than the University of Bristol. But that, for a mathematician or physicist, shouldn't be surprising, because at LUMS we are able to choose from the very best out of 240 million people. In Bristol we're choosing, again, some of the best, but are from a much smaller population.
Okay. The next point is about governance and autonomy of universities. I mean, a comparison.
I'm not an expert on governance and on what is efficient and what is not, but what I like about LUMS is that it is a small university. That means that the faculty feel very free and easy talking to deans and to provost and to the vice-chancellor. I also find that friendly interaction with the next level up very, very positive, and without it, it would be nearly impossible to be a dean.
So based on the previous point, how would you compare the British and American system? For example, in Pakistan, we have traditional universities like Punjab University, which follow the British system, the colonial system. And then we have modern universities like LUMS and NUS, which they follow the American model. And since you have spent most of your time in the UK, where there is a British model, so as a general rule, how do you compare both the models, whether there are some pros and cons of each, and what reforms actually you would suggest, that which way Pakistan should actually move forward?
It's very difficult to get away from your background. For me, there are huge advantages in the British system. I do like the breadth that is possible in the US system, but the fact that there already is specialization in Pakistan through the FSC and A-level focusing on a small number of subjects, in some ways you could argue that the British system is a better match to the Pakistani school system. Apart from that, yes, both have advantages. My one big complaint, as I said earlier, about the American system is the huge quantity of assessment.
Critical thinking is so important and extremely essential in shaping a successful academic or scientific career. What recommendation would you give to the Pakistani students to work and enhance on critical thinking?
Everybody should study statistics, because unless you have a little bit of statistical background, you don't understand the concept of uncertainty. And uncertainty is something really important. People tend to believe that if a result comes out as a certain number, then that number is absolute. But it isn't. There is an uncertainty in every measurement. When you look at the results of any experiment, any exercise, even, for example, taking an examination, people think that a CGPA of 3.89 is different from 3.88. Actually, it isn't different at all. Within the uncertainty of measuring how good a student is, those are the same. And unless people really understand this concept of uncertainty, they will make very dangerous decisions in their lives.
Okay, my next question is, what reforms would you suggest for example, improving the quality of education and research in Pakistan and raising academic standards, most importantly in STEM?
There is one reform which would, from my perspective, make a huge difference, and that is to remove the requirement to do a master's degree before you start a PhD. In Pakistan, once you've done 4 years of BS, you have to do 1.5 or 2 years of master's before you start research. To me, this is a terrible waste of people's lives. I was lucky. I was able to become an assistant professor after 6.5 years of education, 3 years of bachelor, 3.5 years of PhD. I'm not saying that that's probably a bit short, but I think for many people, the current Pakistani system is too long. You only have to look at the fact that from LUMS, some of the bachelor students are able to get admission directly into a PhD in the US. It's very strange that we're saying that our students are qualified to do a PhD in top American universities, but are not qualified to do one in Pakistan. It depends on the subject area. There are some areas where you need to have a great deal of background knowledge in order to start research. But there are other areas of experimental science where you can start your research really after 3 or 4 years of undergraduate education. And the reason for doing that is if you start research earlier, you will go into it with much more enthusiasm, and you won't lose your freshness, your ability to innovate, your ability to really come up with thinking outside the box, as they say.
Okay. What would you recommend in retaining the talent and actually managing the brain drain, which is a key issue these days, a lot talk about?
Again, I think a lot of this is related to PhD education. There are very few opportunities at the moment for people with PhDs in Pakistan, apart from teaching. And that is not the case in other countries. What I would really like to see is a PhD startup culture. An example I often mention to students here is of a company which was founded by a chemistry PhD student at the University of Bristol. They developed a small molecule which had applications, I think it was in diabetes, glucose monitoring. And after 4 or 5 years, they sold that company for £600 million, not rupees, pounds. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody who does a PhD can start a company which brings them £600 million. But if you are young, you really have an opportunity to take that chance. Try and take your research into a product, or take somebody else's research into a product. A PhD gives you a huge amount of ability to be flexible, to deal with the slings and arrows of fate. PhD is an excellent qualification in that respect. And if you take that chance and have on your CV that you tried to run a company, then I think it's going to help you in later ventures as well. So I really would like to see more hardware tech startups. Startups in the software area are already doing pretty well, one has to say, but in the hard sciences, much less. And I think once that ecosystem starts, I think that will be a very good way of attracting people to stay in Pakistan.
From your perspective, should the universities focus more on the quality teaching or more on the research side?
I think both of those are important, because I really believe in the concept of the university. And the university is traditionally a community of scholars. I say this to all my colleagues, and they're fed up with hearing me say that we're a community of scholars. Sure, we're going to fight together sometimes, but those scholars are the faculty, the staff, and the students. And it's really important to be collegial. You can see the connection between the word collegial and college and colleague. It's this idea of working together collaboratively that is really important. And what are we working together to produce? We're working together to produce new knowledge and to produce education. And so the education and the knowledge generation are key to the function of a university.
My last question is, hope is so important for our youth and new generation who are actually desperate in leaving the country. And hope is also the acronym of our channel, Harnessing Optimism with Purpose and Empathy. What hopes means to you?
Hope is not only for youth. I build my whole life around hope. If I didn't have any hope, I wouldn't come to Pakistan. I wouldn't come in every day to work in the Dean's office. If I don't hope that things will get better, then what is the point? And it's also the other way around, that if you don't have any hope, then you can't really survive in this world. So hope is key. Optimism is key. There are many bad things going on, but you still should try to make your own contribution towards the good.